Hey guys, it's Hunter. Welcome back to another episode of Agufish. Usually on this channel we try to cover the newest and freshest releases, but this is a series where we go back and revisit guitars in the collection, see how they've held up, see what's changed over time, and this has been a highly requested one. So this is my heavily modified 1972 Gibson Les Paul Custom. Got it as a husk on eBay in 2012 with no parts. James Hetfield is one of my biggest inspirations, not only when it comes to the music, but also taste in guitars. Like his Iron Cross is a modified 73. So when I put this together, I looked at what components he was using. We've got a Godot bridge and tailpiece. The first thing most purists notice about this is the large screw post, which is generally a telltale sign of a fake. No, a previous owner for some reason thought it'd be cool to put a big brass block under the bridge. It's a unique feature, adds a ton of weight, and is fitted for metric large screw post pneumatics. Spurs are locking tuners, and judging by the number of holes in the headstock, it had at least 2 sets of tuners before that. Then it's got Fishman Fluence Will Adlers, which might be my favorite pickup set of all time. You've seen it a lot on the channel. It used to be far and away my number one. I love Norlin Les Pauls. The thin necks, the pancake bodies, the volutes. They're so different from anything Gibson made before or has made since. They're also heavy as shit. This one hasn't been in any videos for a while though, and that's because it just got back from the guitar doctor. It was there for a couple of months, and while there was nothing technically wrong with it, it's so much better now. Let's start from the beginning. So a couple of months ago, I uploaded a video on this. It's a reclaimed rust RESTOMOD 1974 Les Paul Custom. It was basically brought back from the dead, and that's not even an exaggeration. It was fairly close to being dumpster ready, but I brought it to Wendell's Music, and together with my luthier Wendell, we brought it back to life. Now, it's incredible. It is a special guitar. Genuinely one of the best Les Pauls either of us has ever played, which is amazing considering the condition I bought it in. It's alive, it's resonant, and the playability is unreal, in large part down to the jumbo stainless steel frets. That guitar was so good, it ruined my former number one. As far as I know, the 72 was a factory fretless wonder, and it was never refretted, which means as little fret life as it had fresh off the production line 50 years later, it had no gas left in the tank. Sounded amazing, wasn't that great to play. Been meaning to have it refretted for years, but while basically nothing else was original, it still had the Gibson signature fret nib binding. You can usually tell when a Gibson's been refretted because the nibs generally get destroyed, like on this one. Saving the nibs is really time consuming, and usually luthiers don't think it's worth the effort to keep them. They're also really comfortable on the fingerboard edges, and they help give a guitar a uniquely Gibson feel. Well, nibs are also like on high-end Japanese brands like Navigator, but for now, you get my point. This still had them, and I didn't want to lose them. So that's where I was at, and I got a little mad at Wendell. By making that guitar so good, he'd ruined my former number one, and we needed to fix it. Now, I had no idea what we were in for. So it started out as a seemingly easy experiment, from my point of view at least, because I did not know better. Turned into a massively arduous task, but now we've done it. This is a 1972 Gibson Les Paul Custom with jumbo stainless steel frets and the mostly original Gibson fret nibs, and a couple of other pretty unique aftermarket mods. Almost definitely the only one in the world like it. Like, if anybody tries to steal this, it's gonna be pretty fucking obvious. Anyways, Norlin-Era Gibson Les Paul Custom with stainless steel frets and original fret nib binding. Vlogged the whole process. Here's how it was done. While I'm showing footage of Wendell using a soldering iron to remove the original low-ass frets, let me explain the situation. Les Pauls generally have a fingerboard radius of 12 inches, and radius is important to consider when installing new frets. You don't want mismatched radii where the fingerboard and frets have different curvatures. That would make for a terrible playing experience. Stainless steel is a hard material, but luckily you can get pre-radius frets, which would work in most cases. Something that happens to fingerboards is they kind of change shape over time, whether it's because of a refret or because it forms to the habits of the player. This guitar, it's approaching 50 years old. It's got a, well, let's call it a custom fingerboard radius. Near the ends, it's got closer to a 10-inch radius, like a PRS, and in the middle, it's around 11.5 inches. If you remember, the 74 was also messed up, where it was like a 9 to 11-ish inch compound radius, though from the damage, we suspect that was intentional. Either way, since the nibs were already gone, it was easy to just re-radius the neck with a sanding block. But in this case, we're still trying to save the nibs. Use that radius block, you're destroying those nibs. So instead, we had to do something that Wendell was a little less than enthusiastic about. Get non-radius stainless fret wire and fret by fret individually custom radius them. Then, because each one is slightly different, measure each of the 22 original frets and replicate them with stainless to within a very tiny fraction of an inch for a perfect fit in between the nibs. It was about as horrible as it sounds.
This save the nibs thing, the reason it's not done is because it's this kind of pain in the ass.
And I love doing these RESTOMOD projects with Wendell. Even though they're very time consuming, they can get pretty expensive. He knows so much. It's always a great learning experience. Speaking of a great learning experience and covering the expensive project, let's take a quick second and thank the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. I've been a huge fan of Skillshare. I'm super excited they decided to sponsor this video. So if you're unfamiliar with Skillshare, they're an awesome online learning community with over 25,000 classes ranging from design to music to entrepreneurship to brewing amazing coffee, which is very important. They're always adding new premium courses, so whether you want to feed your curiosity, further your creativity, build professional skills, or all of the above, Skillshare is the place to learn. There are even live classes when you join, working alongside other members for real-time inspiration. I've been really enjoying this Productivity for Creatives class by Thomas Frank. We're all guitarists, we're all creatives, and it's hard to be consistently creative and productive at the same time. Show of hands, who's got a creative project they've started but just isn't getting done? Everyone? Cool. And this course has been incredibly helpful in building systems in the mind to get things done. And the best part about this, the first 1,000 subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month trial of Skillshare completely free, so you can start learning, exploring, and feeding your creativity today. You learn new skills, it's completely free. Your support pays Wendell's fee and has directly made this video possible. There's absolutely no excuse not to click. And you've got plenty of time to click the link that supports the channel. Thanks in advance, because this is where the fun begins. And by fun, I mean the long process. As you might have guessed, there were a lot of mess ups. What's good is that, since none of the frets were the same length, messing up the length for 17 might make it the perfect length for 19, for example.
If I screw up, too bad. That's why we're hopscotching. See, there was only 4 thousandths difference between 22 and 21. I mean, this is the part you have to nail it here.
Not gonna lie, there were a lot of failures, but Wendell actually managed to get on a roll for a little bit.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, it's about a 64th of an inch. And I can see that with my eye. Oh my God. Nailed it from 30. I mean, the height of these frets means I'm probably going to have to take off a little bit to get it down to where it's even with the nib. That part's going to be a little bit of a pain in the ass. This is the biggest pain in the ass, though. I'm sizing the frets to fit between the nibs.
I know.
And it's stainless.
Yeah, so even though there was a fair amount of complaining, reclaimed rust projects, RESTOMODs, bringing guitar back to life, it's so worth it, as Wendell explains.
Thank you for saving me. I will reward you with awesome tone and playability.
And as I was posting teaser pictures of the progress on social media, some people noticed the burnt fret ends. Good eyes, grinding the frets down to size, that's where they came from. Alright, so with all the frets cut to perfection, or at least we hope, it's time to use the scraper tool to make sure you've got some clean fret slots, then seat the frets before gluing them in. Hopefully all of them are the right size and seat properly. Otherwise, gotta cut them again. There were certain problem frets that either refused to stay seated or were cut the wrong size. Number 14 was particularly problematic. It had to be cut a record of 5 times before we finally got one that would behave. And once they were installed, we also realized some of the frets didn't fit quite right, so those had to be repulled, remade, and reinstalled. Remember, it has to be a perfect fit. If there's any gaps, a string could get caught in it, and that, kids, would be bad.
You see how much gap there is between the...
Oh, yeah.
That's not gonna fly. I can't live with that.
Basically, just one more pain in the ass as to why luthiers don't like to keep the fret nibs, and especially not with stainless. So, 40-something frets later, we were finally done, could finally finish gluing them in, then getting to leveling. Or were we done? While leveling, Wendell, a perfectionist, in this case to his own demise, found a fret that wasn't quite right.
Yeah, let's make another 47 frets for this guitar.
Okay, so here we ran into another problem. The original fret wire was much smaller than jumbo stainless steel. So since the fret nibs were made to match the original frets, they were absolutely dwarfed by the new ones. The first strategy we went with was to try and file the ends of the frets down to match the nibs, and this worked to an extent, as in it felt good enough. It didn't look too great though. The nib was there, kind of, but it didn't really cover the fret end like it would on a factory Gibson. Eventually, we'd have to change tactics. So right here, the method was still to shape the fret ends by filing stainless down to match the original nibs, but at this point, Wendell made a decision that would cost us more time, be yet another pain in the ass, but give us way better results.
You know what? Stop the cameras. We kept all the nibs, as you can see. But because these frets are so much bigger than what was on there before, we can shape it back. We tried on this one here. This one, just to see how it would go. At this point, I think it would be better to like build these nibs back up with some paste.
And the way you make paste? Pieces of binding and acetone. Mix it up and you've got binding paste. Apply acetone to the original binding to soften it up and help the paste stick to it, and you're ready to build back those nibs. Sounds very simple, but like the rest of this project, very time consuming.
I still have a little bit of shaping to do with a finer file, and I'll get it flat so I can see all the facets a lot better. But you see how it's almost like it's completely blended.
All right, I'll be honest with you. So I'm gonna be cutting a lot out. We recorded literally tens of hours of footage. It was a good solid week of filming all day, every day. But the basic concept, once the paste was applied, is this. Carefully shaping the fret ends with a file by hand, applying more acetone where required to make sure the new material blends fully with the old, and then polishing everything, fret nibs, frets, fingerboard, by going over it all with files and polishing papers using finer and finer grits each time. It's a lot of work. I'm not gonna bore you with all of it because again, it is a lot, but the time lapse and final result is super satisfying. So at this point, Nathan, one of Wendell's interns, had a great idea. With much larger frets, the guitar needed a new nut anyways. It already has a brass block under the bridge. Why not a brass nut to match? Excellent. And with the grinder, we were able to give it a brushed look so it wasn't super shiny and would match the rest of the guitar aesthetically. But finally, it was done. Nothing else to do but string it up and see if it had all been worth it.
I'm there.
What do you mean? Oh. Just joking. When I wired this up a few years ago, I had no idea what I was doing, and the neck pickup didn't work because my connections were trash and came undone. Wendell insisted on fixing them, and then we were ready.
So how this thing resonates. This is one of the good ones for sure.
So it's done, it's been a couple of months, it's home now, it's so inspiring to play. Literally the riffs were just flowing out of this thing, had to write something with it, it sounds so good. Here it is in a full produced mix, and then we'll recap with some final thoughts. Alright, so here we are. Final thoughts. This wasn't a cheap nor really a necessary trip to the Guitar Doctor. You've got the cost of a refret, at the cost of keeping the fret nib binding, add the upcharge for stainless steel. Pretty pricey. But my god, finding the only luthier either brave or dumb enough to take this monster job on was worth it. The only thing that makes a Norlin Les Paul Custom better for me in terms of feel is stainless steel frets. And I'll probably end up doing a full comparison video at some point between the 72 and the 74, but basically the main difference between the two is that the 74 with the round ball ends feels almost like what if ESP made a vintage Norlin style Les Paul, whereas the 72 with the fret nibs feels more Gibson-y. Both feel like playing on glass though. Stainless steel frets, I love them so much. And I will say that the 72 has a ton of sustain and is epically resonant, noticeably more so compared to the 74, which is already great in both departments. Like, I feel like the brass nut in combination with the big brass block under the bridge probably has something to do with that. Like, there's a reason they make church bells out of brass. That's not a random thing. Maybe the previous owner was an idiot. Maybe he was onto something. Either way, the brass nut looks really cool with the brass truss rod cover. I almost want to remove the black finish from the top of the block at some point because I think that would look really cool too. To be honest, probably would never do the brass block mod on any other guitar because the thing is so unbalanced. There's like body dive, like the inverse of the SG problem. But since it's come back, this has gotten so much playing time. The Fluence Will Adlers are obviously awesome pickups. It sounds amazing. Super inspiring instrument to play. Like, this has again been given new life. That's the end of the video. Hit like if you enjoyed it. Hit subscribe if you're new. That really helps out. Let me know in the comments what's a guitar that you've recently rediscovered or recently brought back to life. If you want to know when videos like this are uploaded, hit the bell for notifications. We'll be doing more like this soon. Social media, merch, and Discord server links are in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. You've been awesome, and I'll see you for the next video.